Hi, and welcome to the Kickstarter roundup from Rule of Carnage for November. So this month, mostly STL files. I think that's because as we're getting so close to the run-up to Christmas, projects are trying to avoid physical rewards that won't necessarily deliver before the big day. But before we get into our projects, we've got a special offer this month. So a project that we previously featured, the Rulebook Tabs, has reached out to us and given us a 20% off code for anybody who's watching the video. If you go by to www.rulebooktabs.com and enter the code ManoKent, you'll get 20% off of any of their rulebook tab sets. So they've got sets for Blood Bowl, Warhammer the Old World, all sorts of bits and pieces. These are those tabs that you can stick onto your rulebook, make finding rules that much quicker, make playing the game much more efficient and much more enjoyable. So the codes and the links will be down in the down below sections through there. Those codes will be live for 1 week from today. As I say, 20% off their full range of tabs. So yeah, if you are a player of any of those GW games, you own the rulebook, swing by, pick up the tabs. I think they're always a no-brainer for making play quicker, more efficient, more enjoyable. And with the 20% off, I think they're sort of double no-brainer. I think it's an easy choice. Swing through there, pick them up. They're really cool, and they're just going to make playing and enjoying yourself at the tabletop that much quicker, that much more efficient. Okay, that said, we'll move on to the projects for this month, and we're going to launch straight in with the STL file projects. First of those is Demons of Pestilence by Celtic Miniatures. So if you like something maybe a bit more Oldhammer, Celtic Miniatures do some really great stuff. We featured them repeatedly on the channel. I've got unboxings of their stuff on the channel. I use their minis for playing because I have a lot of sort of Oldhammer minis already, and their stuff slots in just absolutely perfectly with any sort of existing GW Oldhammer collection. This particular campaign are for some Demons of Pestilence. So some Nurglings, some Plague Bearers, multiple versions of a Great Unclean one. So obviously, if you're looking to play Chaos, and Celtic already have some really great old school Chaos Warrior minis, and their versions of minis are the old school ones, which again I have a large collection of. They also, yeah, with these guys, you can add them together with the Chaos Warriors, have a really significant force now of modern printed STL resin, old school, Oldhammer Chaos forces with demons and mortals together. So really, it is the perfect option if you're looking to have a, quick and cheap and easy Chaos force for playing in the Oldhammer style, maybe mix them in with some of your older existing miniatures and models. And like I say, I've had some of their stuff, I put it together, I painted it. Really easy to put together, really easy to paint. It's really intelligently designed and put together to be sort of easy to use, easy to get on with, and easy to get a really sort of nice quick look together for the tabletop. Okay, moving on. Next up for our STL files, we've got Army of Darkness, Dark Elves by Monolith Arts. So this is an interesting set of minis, I think. They're listed as Dark Elves, but they are distinctly, I would say, not the GW Dark Elves. Maybe some of the Dark Elves we would know from a range of normal miniatures mass battle producers. These are much closer to, I think, sort of RPG D&D feeling Dark Elves. But what's really great about the project is plenty of them in this project to make a good sized warband skirmishing force. This would easily do for a large Saga Age of Magic force. I think there's plenty in here, considering that Dark Elves tend to be a very elite army, to play right up to something, Warhammer sized, Hobgoblin, things like that. So there's loads of different units in here, all of them very cool, very stylish looking, lots of sort of interesting different feels. Now, because they're not being built for, I think, a mass battle force, you're going to have to sort of figure out what you want each of the guys to be, which is why I think they're super good for Hobgoblin, which obviously asks you to put the unit keywords onto the unit and define how they're going to play, but I think these would fit in absolutely fine for any sort of mass battle force game. Like I say, great for saga scale. Tons of options here for something in a smaller scale, like Frostgrave or whatever, and loads of options, I think, to put these guys out as a proper mass battle force. So if you're looking for something dark elfy, like I say, interestingly, these dark elves, I would say, adjacent to wood elves, they've got a sort of dark nature feel to them, so I think they would pass just fine for wood elves in most systems. I think with a bit of imagination, a bit of thought, there's plenty here for a full tabletop force. Well worth looking into. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Kingdom of Noldareth by Jacob Lucas. So if you do have an elf army, a dark elf army, maybe a woody dark elfy army, and you're looking for some terrain for them to play across, this campaign's got you well covered. So this is a campaign for an elven town, possibly settlement of some kind. It has a strong Tolkien Lord of the Rings edge feel to it, which, you know, is what most elves in most fantasy worlds have been inspired by anyway, so this is going to sit quite happily into most fantasy universes. Again, they're that sort of end of elves that are a bit high elfy, a bit wood elfy, that sort of Tolkien, Lothlorien sort of version of things. So yeah, lots of really elegant, lovely looking buildings, plenty of playability here. I think this would be a great sort of set of buildings for a settlement within and around the forest, something to be sort of discovered, maybe defended by a small skirmishing force of elves against a larger force, or maybe something sort of abandoned, an ancient sort of beauty of times past. Anyway, whatever you do with it, really lovely buildings, very elegant looking, a solid amount of terrain, a good town's worth of stuff here, I think. Plenty to fill up a tabletop with lots of really cool looking terrain. Okay, moving on to the next of our STL files, we've got the Kingslayers Company miniatures by Vector Miniatures. So this is a really nice set of human empire-y, medieval sort of guys. Within the campaign, there's enough for a couple of units and a band of leaders of some kind or another. So there's like a unit of crossbowmen, a unit of like halberdiers, and some leaders. So this is a small skirmishing sized warbands worth of minis. I think there's plenty here, obviously, for something like the Frostgrave scale of play. I think the henchmen and the leader have a load of character to them. There's some hounds, I think, in the campaign, which does turn up in things like Frostgrave and are often difficult to get really cool minis of. All of the minis have tons of character, really solid look to them. We featured this creator on the channel before a few times. They just make stuff that looks cool. It's on the grittier end of things, not like full Souls-like, but not sort of squeaky clean and cartoony, so somewhere in the middle, which I think is a real sweet spot for a lot of people. So if you're looking for something for a smallish saga scale style game, something with a couple of units, a mini warband thing, these would do for that, I think. Certainly if you're looking at something at the individual combat single miniatures end of things, tons here to sort of cover something like that. And these could slot into a larger army. You'd have a couple of really nice characterful units that you could slot into any sort of human, medievally era fantasy, possibly historic at a push, but if you can use these for historic, I'd want to sort of give them a look over first. But really nice characterful looking minis, solid amount for a smaller skirmish warband style game, well worth looking into and checking out. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Fantasy Warships and Sea Creatures by Limelight Miniatures. So this is a campaign I really like this month. It's doing fine. I'd like to see it doing a lot better because it's doing some really cool and interesting bits, in my opinion. So it's a campaign for a set of fantasy warships, which can be printed in sections to provide something big enough to play a skirmish game on top of. So you could use these as terrain for a sort of sea-based battle of some kind. You could have the ships being sort of movable with troops on them, have them come together, have them battle, do loads of really cool, interesting stuff with that. Certainly if you're playing a system that has rules for fighting in water, fighting while swimming, transferring from ship to ship, and you don't get enough chance to use them, this is absolutely brilliant for that. I think you can also shrink these guys down, print them out, use them as proxies for something like Man o' War, or if you want to be playing Mike's Raiders of the Toxic Seas, they'd be great for that. Also comes with a set of sea creatures, so you can have some monsters for using in your sort of existing fantasy warship games. Also, a set of sea textures, so you can print up some nice bases for your ships. And as if any of that weren't enough, backers are getting a 20% off at Deep Cut Studios on their mats. So if you want to get yourself a sea style based mat for play with, frankly, I think for a lot of people backing this campaign in order to get that 20% off, I know how much money some people spend on their playmats. I think might be worth it, just in order to get that 20% off. But loads of really cool stuff here. I think cool for terrain, cool for playing pieces. I love the sea creatures. I think the 20% off is a great offer depending on what you're planning on picking up in the next sort of few months. Yeah, I think this is a really cool campaign doing some really interesting stuff. And I often pick out campaigns like this that are doing something that you're not going to see in the next 3 to 6 months. This is an unusual set of STLs, an unusual campaign. I think because of that, I would strongly suggest swinging by, giving it a look over, because if you like the things in this campaign, you need to back this campaign for them, because they're not going to come around again in the near future. This is not something you see very regularly on Kickstarter or just generally. So I would strongly suggest swinging by. Even if you're not sure it's for you, swing by, give it a look over. As I say, it's like £12, I think, to back it. These are cool minis, cool sculpts you're not going to see again. If you want them, get them now. If you like the look of them, just pick them up. Well worth backing into this one. Giving this one a strong recommendation this month. Okay, moving on. Next up for our STL files, we've got Gorvak Bonecaller and the Black Fang Host by Avatars of War. So, Avatars of War, again, another well-known repeat creator, very trustworthy creator. This campaign is for a set of undead orcs. So, sort of orc skeletons, sort of skeleton zombie dragon being ridden by a sort of orc general. So it's something with like a bit of extra character to it. Look, undead are very, very popular. Orcs are very, very popular. These guys would slot into either of those armies. So I think if you're willing to proxy a little bit, you could totally drop these guys into an orc army and say that they're this sort of orc or that sort of orc. And obviously orc skeletons are skeletons, so you could drop them into an undead army. So you've got a lot of options here, actually. All of the minis are really cool looking, really lovely sculpts, very high end, as you'd expect from Avatars of War. There's enough here, obviously, for like one unit and a couple of characters on monsters. So as a force in its own, you're looking at something on the smaller end, something like a small Saga Age of Magic. But as I say, because of the sort of dual race, if you like, of the guy of the miniatures in this, they'll slot into a lot of other armies, a lot of other forces that people already own. And look, the sculpts are just really cool. They're really nice. They put me in mind of some of the old GW Dogs of War. I could totally see these guys being used as like a sort of weird mercenary unit in almost any kind of force. Certainly anything on the sort of chaos or evil sort of side of things. And whichever army they go in, I think they'd make a real centerpiece. A really cool looking, well worth checking out. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Old Realm Forge, Beards and Axes by Old Realm Forge. So, going Old Hammer again for this one. This is a set of dwarves with a really sort of strong Old Hammer feel to them. Lots of units in this one. Some free STLs to download and check out. So swing by the campaign and pick up some free loot. Just because they're there and they're available. But yeah, quite a few minis and quite a few units in this one. I would say this would cover you for an elite, large, battle force. This would easily do something like a larger warband force. Like I say, really nice old hammer, old school look to them. Loads of options. There's some sort of piratey dwarves in there. There's handgunners. There's warriors. There's all of the guys you might expect to see in a, let's say, sort of 6th edition-ish old Warhammer army. So loads of options for units here. There's sort of Bugman style guys. As I say, there's sort of units that remind me of the old Slayer pirates. Tons of options, tons of character. If you are looking to pick up at a very reasonable price a smallish dwarf force that could be expanded out but could cover you for playing something at the Warhammer the Old World sort of scale, this is a great campaign to swing by back and pick up. Like I say, tons of character, tons of really cool minis, loads of unit options. Those are distinct units that cover all the sort of the bases that you're going to want for a full army. So yeah, really nice old hammer style dwarves with lots of character and loads of options. What's not to love in this one? Swing by, give it a look over. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Complete Coastal Viking Village with 100 plus 3D printable files by Makerman 3D. I don't know why things necessarily go the way that they do on Kickstarter sometimes, but a little while ago, about a year ago, we had tons of Viking terrain on Kickstarter. I don't know why it's dried up, but it's been a while since there's been a nice campaign for this sort of stuff. And look, it's really handy terrain because it covers lots of different systems. You could use this stuff in historic, you could use it in fantasy, and it plays specifically to certain fantasy sort of realms. So if you're playing the Elder Scrolls based game, it slots in absolutely perfectly for that. If you're maybe playing something like Frostgrave, this could easily be a settlement around the city. Loads of options here, and this campaign has enough Viking style architecture to cover a pretty decent sized settlement. I would say sort of town level. I reckon you could cover, you could pack out a 4-foot square table, I reckon, with this, and you could easily give a suitable amount of terrain for an even larger table for that. Loads of options. There's scatter terrain, there's buildings, there's tents, there's defensive bits and pieces. There's loads of stuff that could play as objectives, like weapons crates, things like that. Loads of options here. I think this is a campaign that will cover your, terrain needs for a whole range of skirmishing style games, up to a fairly large scale. I think, you want something sort of a more sparse tabletop if you're playing mass battle and you want those sweeping battle lines. But if you're playing anything skirmish style, where you want people in and around the buildings, investigating objects, checking out objective markers that make sense and aren't just tokens stuck onto the tabletop, I think it's a great campaign to cover you for all that sort of stuff. Nice theme, lovely buildings, first time creator, so well worth swinging by, giving them some support, encouraging them to come back, create again, and supply more lovely bits and pieces to the community. Okay, next up for our STL files, we've got Join or Die, World War II Comrades in Arms by 3D Breed Miniatures. So 3D Breed, again, a repeat creator, a reliable creator. They've supplied multiple campaigns before, so close as you can get to a Kickstarter guarantee, I think, there. This is campaign for some World War II UK and Soviet forces. So 28mm scale. If you're a World War II historic gamer, you know, you're going to be aware of the bits and pieces here, but lots of options in this campaign. There's a solid amount here for a good sized mass battle army. Certainly, again, something on the Cirque skirmish scale, sort of what would be the warband sort of scope for something like historic. Tons here. If you're playing something about skirmishing in and around sort of towns, these are going to be great for that. And yeah, like I say, loads of options for both of those forces, loads of minis with a lot of character to them, a lot of feel to them. If you're a historic gamer, if you're looking to pick up some more bits and pieces for a World War II force, this is absolutely great for that. If you are interested in some of the alternative history, weird World War, you know, sort of gaming that's, I think, coming up in popularity at the moment. These are obviously perfect for that. You can sort of mess around with them a little bit digitally, you know, get some sort of digital kit bashing going, get something a bit weird. I think more and more STL files, there's loads of options for tweaking and twiddling and doing something interesting with them. So lots of options here. Obviously there's the historic, but there is an option for some sort of more unusual bits and pieces going on here. Well worth looking it over, well worth checking it out. Okay, last up for our standard STL file campaigns for this month, we've got Bastion of Stone 4 Dwarven Automatons by Neil Billings. So we featured this creator before for their Bastions of Stone bits and pieces. They have some really lovely imaginative files. I think last time we featured them they had a sort of working cog powered drawbridge, which I thought was super fun, really cool. This campaign is just about coming towards its end, so if you do like it, if you see this video, please swing by and back it right now. I think it'll probably be in its last 3 days when this goes up. This campaign for a set of Dwarven automatons. So these are sort of clockwork looking brass punk style walkers, great big monster ones, and then down in different scales. So you've got, you know, the big chunky guys that frankly look about like the size of a small building, down to more human sized, and then there's some little sort of squeaky automaton little gribbles to scout out and about and do those sorts of things. And look, you know, they look really good, they look really nice, a lot of fun, a lot of imagination, a lot of just coolness to them. If you want to sort of punch up an existing dwarven force, if you want to proxy things in, you want to use your dwarves in different systems, have something that sort of covers some slots that normal dwarf armies don't usually have, like monsters and vehicles and stuff of that nature. These are really cool. I think they're really cool because they look really cool. I think they're well worth picking up, and I think that they're a great option for somebody looking to extend an existing dwarven collection or dwarven army. So yeah, if you're a dwarf collector, if you just like some, you know, cool brass punk style automatons, swing by, give this one a look over for definite. Okay, that's it for our standard campaigns this month. As I said before, basically all STL file campaigns. I think that's because of the run up to Christmas. But as usual, we do have a Pay What You Want campaign, and we've got a late pledge campaign coming up, so stick around for that. Our Pay What You Want campaign for this month is Pay What You Want Medieval RPG Town Set 12 by 3DP4U. So this is a Pay What You Want campaign with Pay What You Want and paid levels, as they often are. The Pay What You Want level is a really nice piece of terrain. It's a sort of a forested barrow, so a sort of a grave mound, you know, that would be somewhere in the wilderness a bit. So I think it's a really, really lovely bit of terrain, actually. I think it will slot in really nicely to a whole different set of tabletops. It could be a great objective piece for, you know, hidden, buried riches belonging to some sort of king. And obviously it's redolent with story. There's, you know, all sorts of fantasy worlds have haunted barrows that have to be gone to and dug through. So I think on the Pay What You Want level, Really great piece of terrain. I strongly recommend swinging by, picking that up at a pay what you want price, and having it in the library for pulling out when you want it. The upgraded levels, also really lovely. Three really nice sort of fantasy medieval buildings. They could work in historic at a push, but they are sort of fantasy feeling. They're a bit weird, quirky, interesting, a bit Wizard's Towery to a degree, which is absolutely perfect. That's great. It's really nice to have some characterful terrain you can pick up, put onto the tabletop. Obviously, from it being set 12, this is a repeat creator, so a reliable creator. So yeah, I think definitely swing by, check out the pay what you want level. I think that's a no-brainer to swing by, pick that one up. It's a really cool piece that will have loads of utility on the tabletop. And look through the other pieces. If you want to upgrade, do support the creator for putting out a pay what you want option and for putting out some really cool buildings. Okay, that's it for our live campaigns. This month we've got a late pledge campaign. So this is a campaign that has finished its main run but is still available for backing, and it is 7TV Fantasy Genre Guide by Crooked Dice Game Design Studio. So, I would imagine that most people watching the channel are aware of the 7TV system. If you're not, it's a really cool sort of world where the central system is that there's a TV or movie studio, which is the mechanics of the game, and then you slot in the different show, the different genre, the different movie that your particular miniatures are working their way through. So the underlying system is really cool. It's got options for sort of cliffhangers and plot moments and etc etc, and then what you slot in as your genre sort of defines the scenarios and the characters and the particular play that you're going to be involved in that session that week. So this campaign is for some fantasy rules and options. So as usual with Crooked Dice, I think it's a really high level offering. Loads of sort of scenarios, campaign systems, miniatures and units, everything you might want for playing a high fantasy cinematic but small model count skirmish game with loads of story beats. Like I say, that this system has these cliffhanger plot cards that you flip over repeatedly, so you keep getting narrative moments, keep getting storyline throughout the game. So yeah, if you haven't tried out 7TV, or if you have and you'd like to extend out to a fantasy setting, the late pledge for this campaign is up. It's already funded, so it's a guarantee, you know, going to go through. It's in production, and it's from a very reliable studio. So again, it's pretty much a guarantee on that front. If you back it, you're going to get what you paid for. So if that appeals to you, if you like the idea of highly narrative, fantasy focused skirmish gaming, swing by, give this one a back, pick it up. Okay, that's it for this month. As I said a few times, Kickstarter is going to be really slowing down as we come through to Christmas. Certainly the physical reward campaigns have really dried up. As usual, I'll be back next month with another roundup. Things might start picking up to try and catch people who want things, you know, in the new year, but I imagine it'll be largely again sort of STLs digital rewards, but we'll see. As usual, this weekend there's a game design chat with myself, Mike Hutchinson. But for now, and from this episode of This Rule of Carnage, I think it'll be a thank you and goodbye. So goodbye, bye bye.